Hi, I'm Ellie Waddington, a hypnobirthing teacher, positive birth advocate, and mum to two feral but adorable children. You are listening to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. This podcast is here to empower you with the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need for a calm, positive birth experience. Together, we'll tackle the big questions, bust some myths, and share practical tips for your journey into motherhood. Plus, you'll hear inspiring real birth stories from mums who've been there, and expert guests sharing their wisdom and insights. Whether you're planning your first or adding to your tribe, I've got you covered, so let's dive in. Hey gorgeous mama, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Guys, it is now April. We made it. Hallelujah. We got through winter. We got through all of those false, annoying springs that we get. Or maybe it's just here in Northumberland. I don't know if you get it where you are in your part of the world, but we always get these like random warm patches where you think, oh yeah, it's spring. But then a few days later, it's like really cold and miserable again. So we get a few of these false starts, and I don't kind of let myself think, I don't let myself get into that frame of mind where spring is on its way. Not yet, but now I think we are safe. I think now that we are in April, the frost has stopped and we are officially in spring, and I am just absolutely ready for it. Absolutely loving it. So this week on the podcast, I have a little story for you from the lovely Jodie Page. She is a fellow hypnobirthing teacher, and she is talking to us all about her birth journey. So she's had 3 lovely children, and she's talking to us all about her birth journeys and how they really inspired her to want to become a hypnobirthing teacher and share the knowledge that she has with other women. And listening to her birth stories, I think is going to really highlight for some of you that it is, if you choose to birth within our NHS, it is always such a gamble as to whether you're going to end up in a sort of system where you're loved and supported, or whether you're going to end up in that sort of system where you feel like there's a bit of care lacking. In our NHS, we have some incredible midwives, absolutely amazing midwives. Midwife, it literally means with woman. It means supporting women. And there are some truly amazing midwives that, they're with women in the true sense of the word. But you also come across some midwives occasionally you think, why on earth did you choose this career path? Like, why on earth did you think this was for you? You clearly don't enjoy your job. Now, luckily, those types of midwives are far and few between. But unfortunately, Jodie, in her story, did come across one of those midwives, I feel. Anyway, so listen to the story. She is absolutely lovely to talk to. And it's also going to really highlight to you why I bang on all the time about making multiple birth plans. Okay, because you can have like a really good birth plan. You know exactly what you want. You've done all the preparation, but something will happen that is completely outside of your control, something that you didn't think would happen, and you have to be prepared for change. So make multiple birth plans, have all these different scenarios covered, and you'll see what I mean when you listen to Jodie's birth stories. So without further ado, let's get into it.
So, my name is Jodie Page, and I am a fellow hypnobirthing teacher, and I have had 3 children, and each birth has become the reason why I decided to become a hypnobirthing teacher. So each birth led on to me actually making the decision. So my final birth was when I was like, no, I've got to change and help women. So I will start off with my first pregnancy. So I was 22, quite young, quite naive. I didn't really know anything with regards to the maternity care, and I was very sort of alone in that side, and I decided to do a antenatal class. So I'd done the antenatal class, and the lady touched on a bit about breathing and just sort of how labour will go, and I sat back, and she actually made me more fearful than when I went in. But what I didn't realise that my whole life was that my actual mum and nan subconsciously made me so positive when it became to birth. So the way I explain this is my mum always said to me, I would rather give birth than go to the dentist. Now, I used to think she's absolutely crazy, but she always used to make out that birth was just beautiful and amazing. And I didn't realise this until I became a hypnobirthing teacher, that she was actually the reason that my births were amazing. It wasn't the maternity service, it wasn't the midwives, it wasn't the doctors, it was actually my mum and my nan. Now that I've learned how it all works, it makes perfect sense, which this is why I'm so passionate about it. So she always used to say to me, and my nan gave birth to twins naturally, had 5 children. It was just everything about birth was beautiful. So when I went into this antenatal class, it was very overwhelming with how much they scared me. In, you'll need this pain relief, you'll need that pain relief, this is going to happen. Whereas I actually went in more fearful than when I sort of come out. It was just crazy. So I was at work and I started feeling uncomfortable. So I rang my midwife and she told me, we need to get you checked over because I feel like you're having contractions, which at this point I was 33 weeks pregnant. And I had the checks and they were like, oh, it does seem like you are contracting. So I'd went in, they said that I was contracting and they was going to do a swab to see if I had, like an internal swab to see if I had any of the hormone to indicate that I was going to give birth pretty soon. So I had the swab and the swab actually come back positive, which obviously everyone went into panic stations because obviously she was 33 weeks. We didn't know how she was. So straight away I end up on steroids to try and help her lung development. So anyway, I was told to go home and the contractions had stopped, go home, bed rest. Then my 33 weeks, my waters had broken and I'd given birth a few hours later, but quite calmly. They wanted to induce me quite quickly with regards to the hormone drip. Because she was early, they just wanted to get her out basically. But I just didn't know that I had a right to sort of wait or check her over. But they was in such a panic that it just sort of went, they were like, right, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But in the back of my head, I was just like, this is going to be beautiful, it's going to be amazing. My mum's told me it's amazing, it's going to be amazing. And it was such a beautiful birth. But it was quite quick. Baby was out and she was absolutely fine, by the way. She was £5 1. All she had was a slight jaundice. So we just needed to get those levels up and then we were home. So that was my first birth. So she was quite simple. And even though she was born early, everything was fine. It was lovely. All it was, looking back now, was that I was sort of forced to have the oxytocin drip when really I should have been allowed to wait and sort of see how my labour progressed naturally. But they just because my waters had fully gone, they just wanted her out. So that was the first birth. Now, my second birth was in lockdown. So this again is another scenario where all of that control was taken away from me, and it was just very intense and felt very overwhelming, and you felt very alone a lot of the time. And this is when I say I've had a baby 3 times, and each time the maternity system care has dropped and dropped. And I'd say around 2020, when COVID happened, this is when the drop massively happened for the maternity care, I feel. So with Enzo, it was a straightforward birth, and we just sort of I went into labour at 33 weeks, 37, sorry, with Enzo on the dot. So he was classed as full term on the dot. I was so happy because I can have a water birth, I can do what I want. And that birth was really, really lovely. When she really listened to my body, she really watched me and didn't interfere with how I was. She was just watching from a background, which I absolutely loved. And yeah, the birth was beautiful. And he was born within, oh God, how quick was he? He was 1 hour and 10 minutes from start to finish. which is great. But one thing that did happen with Enzo's birth, which is, it's not funny, but it is funny, because my waters went again, and she checked me and said, "You're 7 centimeters." And I said, "There's no way I'm 7 centimeters. I'm not even contracting. I wasn't feeling anything. It was just more of a tiny slight pain in my back. It was hardly anything." And she said, "No, you're 7 centimeters. I'm going to take you down to delivery ward." Now, I felt myself, and this is why one of the reasons that my company is called Trust Your Body, is because I felt that I wasn't in labour, and I'd been told that I was 7 centimeters, which is fine. I've gone with what the midwife has said. I've gone down to labour ward, and they'd said to me, "Right, we're just going to leave you 4 hours and see what happens." And nothing happened. I was like, "This is ridiculous. I want to go home. Like, I'm not contracting." So 4 hours had gone past, and another midwife come in and said, "We're just going to check." So she checked, and she was like, "I am so sorry. You are 1 centimeter dilated." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "I'm so sorry. The midwife that checked you before was coming off of her night shift. She must have got it completely wrong." I was like, "Are you joking?" So I'd been in this labour ward knowing that I wasn't in labour. I wanted to get home. I wanted to get my oxytocin. I wanted to be at home. And they told me a completely different thing. So they sent me home, and I walked through my door, and I saw my daughter, and I saw her, cuddled her, and Enzo was born an hour and a half later. So it's that sort of, that environment just made me think, oh my God, that completely changed my birth. If I was in that labour ward for another 4 hours, would I still have been in that labour ward for another 4 hours after that? So I didn't really think much at the time because I wasn't a teacher, but now it all makes sense on why I went into labour so quickly as soon as I saw my daughter, and the oxytocin had flowed and everything felt perfect. So then my birth went perfect. So that leads me on to, so that birth was lovely in the end. But at the beginning, we had a little bit of a, I don't know how you can get 7 centimeters to 1 centimeter so wrong, but it just shows to trust your body and how you are feeling in that moment. So it really makes me laugh now, because I just think, how can you get that so wrong? But that's another scenario. So my last labour and delivery was the labour and delivery that I was like, I've got to do something. And basically, same scenario as the other two. He was 36 and 6 days, and waters had gone. So I'd rung my local hospital, and they said, I wasn't contracting like I don't normally do. I know my body, waters have gone, and I've maybe got 4 or 5 hours before contractions start happening. So I've gone to ring them and just let them know. And they said to me, "I'm so sorry, but our ward's completely full." I said, "Okay." I was like, "Well, where am I going to go?" And they said, "Give us a minute. We're going to call round," because I'm from Essex, and there's probably about 10 hospitals around Essex. I was like, "Oh my gosh, where am I going to end up?" So about 20 minutes had gone past, and it was about 1:30 in the morning. And I was like, where am I going? Like, the panic was starting to go in because I didn't know where I was going. My baby was classed as early, only by 1 day, but was still classed as early. And we ring them back, and we said, like, what's happening? And they said, we've tried every hospital in Essex and no one will accept you. And I was like, "But where am I? What do I do?" And they said it was Halloween night. So I don't know why, but it was Halloween night, and all the wards were completely full. And I was like, right, okay. So they said, "Give us 10 minutes. we're going to ring out on the boroughs, which it goes on to Suffolk, places like that, that are like next to where we are. So we've waited another 10 minutes, still nothing. And we're like, I mean, we're going into a bit of panic mode now, because we're a bit like, I don't know where the hell I'm going. We don't know. My husband's got an electric car, so we needed to make sure there was enough miles on the electric, which is crazy. So anyway, they rang us back and they said, you need to get to Bury St Edmunds, which is about an hour and a half from me. And it's in a completely different county. It's the only hospital that's actually accepted you. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I stood there and said, I'm not moving. So I stood there and was like, I'm not moving. I said to my husband, I'm not giving birth in Bury St Edmunds. I was like, I'm just not doing it. And he's like, we've got to get going, because as soon as I've noticed with all three of them, as soon as my body goes, I'm going from 1 centimetre to 10 in a few minutes. He was panicked that we were going to give birth in the car. So I've got in the car eventually, after having a bit of a paddy and saying, I'm not going, I'm crying, all these things. And it's not even that, it's leaving the other two behind was also quite traumatic, because I didn't know how long I was leaving them. And then I was in a completely different county. It wasn't like anyone could bring them up to me, because it was a good hour and a half away, and that's without traffic. So anyway, we get to the hospital. We don't know where we're going. We don't know where the ward is. We know nothing about this hospital. So luckily we get there, and I'm starting to sort of feel twinges, but nothing major. And we was like, we're going to have to walk into A&E. So we've had to walk into A&E. They've had to put me in a wheelchair, because they said, oh my gosh, labour and delivery is like a 10-minute walk. Or like, they were like, we need to get you, we'll put you in a wheelchair, we'll walk you over there. So they walked me over there. And I'm quite a spiritual person. I feel like things happen for a reason. And a very weird scenario happened when the doors opened. So they opened, and one of my good friends that I went to school with, who lived behind me, was doing a locum shift at Bury St Edmunds that night. And she said, oh, I knew it was you, because she knew me as my maiden name, not my married name. And she said, I thought you was Jodie Page, so I've accepted you on the wins that I thought it was you. I was like, what? I was like, how? So this friend that I've grown up with has now the lead midwife on shift. So I was like, this is crazy. Like, and she was like, I can't believe it's actually you. So we've gone right through to the labour ward, and they had to do my booking in confirmation. So while my waters have gone, labour's starting, they had none of my notes, nothing, because obviously some hospitals still use the books, some hospitals don't. My hospital didn't. It used the electronical side. So they had nothing on me at all. They didn't know how any of my previous births, my blood type, absolutely nothing. They knew nothing about me. So I literally had this lovely midwife who was a really old school midwife. She was quite holistic. She was very calm, and she really was listening to me and what I wanted and my boundaries and how I wanted to give birth. And unfortunately, she had to go on a break. So she's gone on a break, and she said, oh, this midwife's just taken over. I'm just going to be 25 to 30 minutes and I'll be back. And I said to her, I feel like I'm turning, like it's going to happen quick in a few minutes. So this time it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and she went on her break, and this midwife come in, and she did not want to talk to me. She didn't want to interact with me. She didn't want to do anything for me. She was, I think in her mind, she was just covering a break. So she didn't really need to do anything, So my body in that moment when we're going to have this baby now. And it had turned. So I could feel that I'd gone into sort of quite active labour, even transitioning to the transitional stage. I knew that I'd gone there. And I said to her, can you please check me? Because I feel like baby's coming. So she checked and she said, you're only 2 centimetres. So we'll check you in another 4 hours. And I was like, no. I was like, baby's coming. So she took me off the monitor and said, darling, you're not even in labour. You need to calm down. It's all going to be all right, but I'm going to leave the room now. And I was like, no. I said, no, you're not listening to me. I need to give birth, and I'm going to give birth very, very soon. So this was at 6:06 that she'd done the examination, and I remember the time so vividly because it sort of stuck in my head. And she'd gone out at 6, it was about 6:10 at this point, and I said to my husband, I can feel him, he's there. So he ran out to her again and said, can you please come in? She's quite concerned. The baby, she feels like the baby's coming out. And she come in and she looked at me and she had these glasses on and she pulled her glasses up to her nose and just went, darling, what do you want me to do? So it was a very patronising, very belittling. I felt awful at that moment. I felt like, oh my God, like she's not listening to me. So, and this is where my name for my company come from, Trust Your Body, because you always should trust how you feel in that moment in labour. So I said to her, she went, do you want a paracetamol? I said, I do not want a paracetamol. I want you to go get Lacey, which was my friend who was the lead midwife. So she went and got Lacey. This time I think it's about 6:15. And Lacey come in and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, she's not listening to me. The baby is there. And she went, let me just calm down. Let me check. And I will never forget the look she gave the other midwife to say, what the hell are you doing? And she looked and she said, right, Jodie, just literally get in your squatting position. Let's get baby out. Baby's head's out. We're going. And I said, get her away from me. I said, get her away. She told her to leave. And then my little old midwife that was on her break ran in like Superwoman, putting her gloves on, like ready to go. She's like, I knew you was going to have this baby when I went on my break. I didn't want to go on my break. I could just feel that you were turning. And yeah, my last baby was born at 6:31. So that whole timings from when she checked me was at 6 o'clock-ish, and baby was completely born by 6:31. And at 6 o'clock, I was 2 centimeters. So they are that in that moment, I remember looking at her being like looking at that midwife being like, I've got to help women, because how many women go through this and how many women sit there not listened to, feeling like they're making it up, feeling like they're scared, they're fearful, and you have a midwife like that makes you feel so small that you want to, are you making it up? Are you being dramatic? Do you not know your body? And it makes you think. But I think because he was my third baby and I'd had them, especially Enzo was so lovely, I knew how my body went and how that Enzo is my second child, but it was the transition. I could feel him there ready to go, and that's the sensation I had when my last baby Presley was born, was that whole sensation of he's there, he's ready to be. I didn't even need to push, he was there. And that's where I just looked at her and thought, I need to change the way people think. And it's such a passion of mine now, because I didn't have that help, and a lot of women don't have that help. And I just am so passionate about making sure that women know the stages of labour and how your body will react, because this is where ladies don't know, and they would think, oh my God, I need to have an epidural at that stage, because they are feeling very overwhelmed by the pain, the contractions, the environment. And yeah, so I literally, I was going to become a midwife. And then I was looking at it and I was like, I don't feel like it's my path. So then I started looking into hypnobirthing, becoming a teacher. And when I actually done the courses and become a hypnobirthing teacher, everything linked up to what it should be. So it was that my mum subconsciously had told me my whole life to don't fear birth. Birth's amazing. Then I learned how I trusted my body with Enzo, and then with Presley, my last one, it was that experience. I want women to be able to speak up and really listen to how they're feeling. So yeah, those 3 births were all quite different, but they sort of led me to where I am now. And I absolutely love giving birth. I would do it again tomorrow, but there's no more babies coming. But there is no more babies coming. And yeah, that is my birth stories and why I become a hypnobirthing teacher and why I'm so passionate in helping women.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a review and hit subscribe on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an update. I'd love to hear from you, so if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, or a question you'd like answered, or if you'd like to share your birth story, please get in touch by email or DM me on Instagram. Until next time, take care.